In this video, I'm going to walk you through the process of sample replacing elements of an acoustic drum kit in a metal track using Superior Drummer 3 by Toontrack. Then we're going to use tools in Neutron's Track Enhance to push the whole kit past the finish line and end up with a tight, polished drum sound that cuts through the wall of guitars. The track we're using is called Army of Cops by Pig Destroyer, and over the course of this tutorial I'll show you how to get from this to this. So what is sample replacement? Well, as it relates to drum replacement, it entails using a virtual instrument plugin to replace or layer recorded, often acoustic drums, with sampled drums. Drum replacement plugins work by detecting when a drum hit occurs on a recorded track. Then it uses that hit to trigger playback of a sample. The practice of drum sample replacement is commonplace in modern music production, perhaps nowhere more so than in the hard rock and metal genres. Now, one reason for this is the breakneck speed at which these drummers are often playing. This rapid performance style will inevitably lead to an uneven attack structure on kicks, snares, and toms. Sample replacement makes sure that the first strike is as audible and strong as the last. Let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is create an instrument track in my Pro Tools session so that I can use Superior Drummer 3 as a plugin. Now, Superior Drummer 3 is compatible with many other digital audio workstations too, so feel free to follow along at home with your DAW of choice, and be sure to head to Toontrack's website for more information about DAW compatibility. I'll go ahead and create that instrument track. I'll find Toontrack Superior Drummer 3, and we're good to go. Now, I need to determine which tracks to import into Superior Drummer 3 for replacement. Whichever tracks you choose, you need to make sure to consolidate and export your drum audio files. This way, you'll have one single region per audio track, and they will all perfectly align when loaded into Tracker. Now, Superior Drummer 3 is a comprehensive virtual instrument solution for drums, but I'm only going to be working in the Tracker tab here. Tracker is designed to take pre-recorded multi-track drum audio files and convert them to MIDI that will trigger Superior Drummer 3's samples. When choosing which tracks I want to bring into the tracker, I'm thinking about a few things. I'm looking to import only the foundational elements of the drums, especially those that are close mic'd, like the snare, toms, and kick. That being said, even though multiple close mics were used on the snare, I'm only going to import the top snare mic, as that mic has the clearest representation of that kit element. Importing files is accomplished by either dragging the supported file types into the center area of the interface or by clicking this Add button here. I'll click that button, navigate to the audio file folder for this session, and bring in the toms, kick, and snare. That should do it. Once the files are added to Tracker, it'll go to work identifying each instrument that is contained in the audio file, so kick, snare, toms, hi-hats, ride, cymbals, and it'll start creating trigger points for each hit that it detects for these instruments. To find these hits and assign them to the correct instrument, Tracker analyzes 512 individual frequency bands for any audio file that is imported. It also examines how the magnitude of these individual frequencies develop over time. Then it uses information based on the 1.2 million drum files analyzed from its supervised machine learning to determine the predominant instrument in the audio file and find all hits. Now, Superior Drummer comes loaded with some incredible kits, but I really like a kit from one of these Superior Drummer SDX expansions called Metal Machinery. I'll call it up here and use the preset Aggro Rock. Now, there's a lot of parameters in the Tracker tab, but I'm only going to walk you through the key parameters that I'll be using to replace these drums. So first off, the mix parameter acts as a blend ratio between source sound and samples. So if I solo my snare and play back some audio, we can hear the original snare and the sampled one. We can even blend both sources together to reinforce instead of completely replace what was recorded. Have a listen. Listening back to your drum tracks with a good setting on the mix knob will allow you to hear any false triggers. And if you feel the tracker hasn't found enough hits on a given track, increase the amount knob. For example, in this section, it's clear that a snare hit from the original snare track didn't trigger a sample. Have a listen to the original. And here's the samples. Now, remember what I said at the beginning of this video. Metal drumming is fast. A great way to make sure that you're not adding samples that don't need to be added is to slow down the tempo of the track using this parameter here. I'll bring it down to half the original speed. Now I'll play back the dry hits to make sure there really is a hit from the snare. There's definitely a hit there. So I'll increase the amount parameter here, and as you can see, a new trigger point was added. Trigger points are represented by bright and dark blue dots. By raising the amount up, it's likely that elsewhere in the snare track, new trigger points were added to where similarly quiet hits were going unsampled by Superior Drummer 3. The next thing I'll do is use the sound recognition match threshold to further ensure the accuracy of the replacement. This threshold is the horizontal blue line that runs through all of the trigger points. Again, trigger points are represented by bright and dark blue dots. Bright blue dots indicate an active trigger, and dark blue indicate an inactive trigger. This threshold line represents the percentage in which the trigger point matches tracker's machine-learned idea of what a specific instrument sounds like. Moving the threshold all the way to the bottom instructs tracker to require a 0% sound match to match its machine-learned database, and therefore, all the trigger points shown as blue dots will become MIDI notes that are sent to Superior Drummer 3. Moving the threshold all the way up instructs tracker to require a 100% match to its machine-learned database, and will most likely result in very few trigger points created. For me, the sweet spot is usually somewhere in the middle. You can also use the detected velocity of a sound to decide whether it is triggered or not with the velocity threshold. The velocity threshold works just like the sound recognition match threshold in that it has a slider that you can adjust to determine the minimum required velocity for a trigger. The velocity's threshold position is always at 0, therefore you can raise the velocity threshold to filter out low-level false triggers. Let's use the sound recognition match threshold and velocity threshold to clean up this fill, which currently sounds a little messy. Have a listen. Let's start with the first tom track. I'll select it and play with the sound recognition and velocity thresholds until I'm seeing and eventually hearing clean samples. I'll do the same for the next tom. Great. No more messy fills. Here's before and after. Another thing I'm noticing is that my snares are a little quiet compared to the other elements in this fill. Let's fix that. I'm going to click and drag these snare hits, ensuring that they're all selected. Now I can head down to the velocity section and drag these snares up so that they're punching through. Here's before. And here's after. The last step I'll take to ensuring that my drums are replaced as accurately as possible is to use the reduce bleed feature. Reduce bleed works by comparing trigger points in the selected track to trigger points in other user-definable tracks in order to avoid double triggering across multiple tracks that bleed into each other. So I'm going to go to each track and make sure to reduce bleed from everything else in this session except the kick, which in the case of this session was a kick trigger. I'll do that now. If I want to tweak the processing on this kit, I can head to the Mixer tab. In the mixer, you'll see the channels for each and every microphone that was used in the sample recording session, and you have full control over each of these channels. We can tweak existing effects and add new ones. I'm actually going to head back into Pro Tools to do some drum processing myself using Neutron. But before I do, I'm going to mute any drums in Pro Tools that I have replaced with Superior Drummer 3, like the toms, snare, and kick. You'll notice that I left the cymbals, ride, and hi-hat in the original session here, and did not import them into Superior Drummer 3. While Superior Drummer 3 is capable of enhancing and/or replacing those instruments, I wanted to highlight replacement techniques for core drum elements like kick and snare for this tutorial. I'm now going to use Neutron 3 on an aux track to enhance the sound of our new kit. I'm going to send signal from the Superior Drummer 3 track over to that aux via a bus. Placing Neutron on an aux track allows me to send other kit elements like cymbals and hi-hats there too, if I so choose. Now that signal is routed correctly, I'm going to use Track Enhance to bring these drums to the next level. Track Enhance is our machine learning powered mix assistant that listens to your audio and then delivers a custom preset to suit the sonic direction in which you want to travel. It also takes into account areas of sonic importance in your audio, like resonances or muddiness, and settles EQ nodes over those problematic frequencies. I'll head to Mix Assistant, choose Track Enhance, select Drums from the Instruments menu, choose a style of upfront and an intensity of medium. And now I'll play some audio. And now we see the assistant going to work. I'll press Accept, and as you can see, we have our custom signal chain for the drums. Beginning with Sculptor, this is the newest module in Neutron 3, and it uses spectral shaping to mold and sculpt the sound into an even better version of itself. I'll increase the intensity here a little bit. And brighten the tone too. We've also got a great starting point with our EQ. The exciter is adding saturation, and the compressor is helping to frame the drums. You can tweak these settings to taste, add in new modules, or keep moving. Via the bus, I can send as little or as much signal to Neutron 3 as I want. Let's do a before and after of the signal chain in Neutron. And for context, here's before we did any work with Superior Drummer 3. And here's before and after all of our processing with Superior Drummer 3 and Neutron 3. Thank you so much for watching. For more information about Superior Drummer 3, head to Toontrack.com, and for more information about Neutron 3, head to iZotope.com and check out our other videos as well. Take care.